Here's something that'll mess with your head. Some of the oldest human traces in all of North America aren't buried in a jungle or a faraway desert. They're sitting right under the dirt of Texas. And for a few of these places, scientists can't even agree on how old they are. We're talking structures possibly older than the pyramids of Egypt. A wall so convincing an entire town named itself after it. A grave sealed away for 11,000 years. And a Texas field that might just rewrite the entire story of when humans first reached the Americas. But here's the twist. The real mystery isn't always who built these places or why. Sometimes it's a much stranger question. When? Because the ground lies, the rock stays silent, and the clues keep vanishing. Stick with me to the end, because number one has been fooling people for over 170 years. Now hit pause for 2 seconds and do something for me. Drop a comment telling me which of these sites you'd stand on first. I read every single one, and your answer might just decide our next video. And if this blew your mind even a little, subscribing is literally one click. One click keeps these deep dives coming, so tap it and let's keep uncovering the impossible together. Number 10, Hueco Tanks, pictographs. We start near El Paso, at a cluster of low granite hills hiding a secret in plain sight. Scattered across the desert floor here are natural rock basins called huecos, stone bowls that trap rainwater in one of the harshest, driest corners of Texas. For thousands of years, that water was a lifeline. People traveled here to drink, to rest, and to pray. And before they left, they pressed their world onto the stone. Hueco Tanks holds one of the richest collections of ancient rock art in all of North America, including hundreds of painted masks left behind by the Jornada Mogollon people, staring out from the rock like faces from a forgotten dream. Now, here's where the science gets slippery. Those Mogollon painters are usually placed somewhere between roughly 200 and 1450 AD, a comfortable, tidy range. But when researchers actually collected pigment samples and ran radiocarbon tests, the numbers came back stranger than anyone expected. Some dates landed around 1,350 years old, others far more recent, and the whole spread refused to line up with the predictions. Why the chaos? Because paint is one of the hardest things on Earth to date. The tiny scrap of organic material inside it can be contaminated by centuries of dust, water, smoke, and every hand that's ever brushed the wall. So instead of a clean answer, scientists got a scrambled signal. A mystery painted right into the rock itself. Picture it. A desert artist, 1,000 years gone, mixing pigment by a rain-filled pool, and today that same paint quietly refuses to tell us exactly when. Your takeaway: if you visit, book a guided pictograph tour, because many of the most fragile images are protected and completely off limits without one. And whatever you do, never touch rock art. The natural oils on your fingertips are one of the very reasons these dates get so scrambled. Every careless touch erases a little more of the answer we're all still hunting for. Number 9, Alibates Flint Quarries. Head up to the wide, wind-scraped Texas Panhandle, and you'll find something extraordinary. The only national monument in the entire state. But forget grand buildings or towering monuments. This is a hillside full of holes. And those holes were being dug before the pyramids of Egypt even existed. This is Alibates, home to a stone so beautiful it looks almost fake. Flint banded in deep reds, purples, and creamy whites, swirling like frozen smoke. And it isn't just pretty. When you strike it right, it flakes into blades sharper than surgical steel. Mammoth hunters were quarrying this exact stone as far back as 13,000 years ago. So why can't we nail down the dates? Because a quarry isn't a campsite. There's no cozy fire pit, no buried hearth, no neat little layer of trash to carbon date. Instead, you get a hillside pockmarked with hundreds of shallow pits, dug and redug for over 10,000 years by wave after wave of completely different peoples. Each group came, chipped out what they needed, and moved on, leaving almost nothing datable behind. You're essentially trying to timestamp a hole in the ground that 100 different generations shared. The tools born here traveled astonishing distances, showing up hundreds of miles away across the continent, carried by trade and migration. But the act of digging itself, It's nearly invisible to science. Imagine the same colorful hillside, worked by hunters 12,000 years apart, both reaching for the same glittering stone, and neither of them leaving a signature. Your takeaway: Alibates is only accessible by ranger-guided tour, so you'll need to plan ahead before you go. You can't just wander in. And here's a thought to carry with you. The next time you spot a gorgeous ancient stone tool behind glass in a museum, remember it may have begun its life as a raw chunk of rock somebody pried out of a Texas hillside a full 100 centuries ago, long before history was ever written down. Number 8. Caddo Mounds. Drive out toward Nacogdoches in the green, humid heart of East Texas, and you'll come across three grassy hills rising gently from the flat land. At first glance, they look like nothing, natural bumps in a peaceful field. But they aren't natural at all. Every ounce of those hills was carried and placed by human hands, one woven basket of earth at a time, by the ancestral Caddo people. These are the Caddo Mounds, sacred ceremonial ground, still deeply revered today, and one of the most important ancient sites in the state. The core science here is actually pretty firm. The Caddo raised these mounds sometime between roughly 750 and 1250 AD, building a thriving village and ceremonial center where their leaders and priests lived. But there's a quieter, sneakier dating puzzle buried inside them. Mounds like these weren't built in a single burst. They were raised in stages, sometimes across centuries. A layer added to honor one leader, another layer piled on for the next, a ceremony here, an expansion there, generation after generation. So when someone asks the simple question, how old is this mound? There isn't one clean answer. It's a bit like asking how old a cathedral is when it took 300 years to finish. The base could be centuries older than the top. Inside a single hill hides an entire stacked history, each layer whispering a different date. Picture it. Not one monument, but dozens of moments frozen together. A slow-motion structure built by people who never saw it finished. Your takeaway: when you look at any ancient mound, here or anywhere in the world, train your eye to see it as a timeline, not a snapshot. That single shift in how you think is exactly how professional archaeologists read the earth beneath their boots. Every layer is a chapter, and the whole hill is a book most people walk right past without ever realizing there's a story written inside it. Number 7. The buried city of the Panhandle. Now picture the 1800s. Settlers pushing across the lonely Texas Panhandle stumble onto something along Wolf Creek that stops them cold. Rows of stone slab ruins, so orderly and so extensive that they can only think of one word for it: a city, a buried city. Word spread fast, and the imagination ran wild. Had they discovered the remains of a lost civilization, some grand vanished empire sleeping beneath the Texas grass? For decades, that legend grew, and people came from far away just to gawk at the buried city of the Panhandle. Here's what careful science eventually revealed. It's not a city, not even close. But don't be disappointed, because the truth is fascinating in its own right. It turns out to be one of the most densely settled ancient districts in the entire region, a cluster of stone foundation homes built by Plains villagers around 1,000 years ago. Real people, real community, real history. Just not the lost empire the legend promised. So why the wild confusion? And why is a clean date so hard to pin down? Because by the time trained archaeologists arrived, the site had already been picked over, poked at, and misread for generations. Curiosity seekers and souvenir hunters had disturbed the very layers scientists rely on to read time. Once those layers get scrambled, reconstructing an accurate age becomes brutally difficult. The evidence is there, but the order has been shuffled like a deck of cards. Imagine trying to read a book after someone tore out random pages and rearranged the rest. That's the puzzle they inherited. Your takeaway: this is a perfect lesson in why the first story you hear is so often the wrong one. Extraordinary claims, a lost city, almost always shrink down into something more human once the real digging begins. But here's the beautiful part. The true version, ordinary villagers building homes on the plains, is no less remarkable when you stop and actually think about it. Number 6. Enchanted Rock. Rising out of the Texas hill country like the back of some sleeping giant is a colossal dome of pink granite, smooth, bald, and impossibly ancient. This is Enchanted Rock, and it has been pulling people toward it for a very, very long time. The Comanche and the Tonkawa both revered it and feared it, trading stories of eerie lights flickering across its surface and strange groaning sounds echoing from the stone at night. To them, the rock was alive, enchanted, watching. And honestly, you can see why the legends took hold. Here's the science that grounds the mystery. Archaeologists have found evidence of human use on and around this dome, stretching across the Paleo, Archaic, and Pre-Archaic periods, thousands upon thousands of years of visitors leaving faint traces. And that's exactly what makes the dating so maddening. There's no single structure here to test, no building, no tomb, no wall. Instead, there's an open-air landscape used continuously and lightly for millennia. People came, camped, left almost nothing, and moved on. Wind scoured the surface. Rain washed the slopes. Each generation's faint footprint got blurred into the last, until the whole timeline smeared together into one long, unbroken haze of human presence. The place is undeniably ancient, but pinning it to a single moment is like trying to date the ocean. And those enchanted noises the tribes described? They're real. The rock creaks and pops as it cools down after baking in the hot Texas sun. Expansion and contraction, pure physics, echoing across the stone at dusk. Your takeaway: if you get the chance, climb it at sunset and just listen. Those famous groaning sounds still happen today, and knowing the science behind them doesn't kill the magic. It deepens it. You're hearing the exact same voice of the rock that made ancient people believe this granite giant was alive, and whispering secrets into the dark. Number 5. Horn Shelter, Double Burial. This is where the story turns quietly heartbreaking. Beneath a rock overhang looking out over the Brazos River, two people were laid to rest side by side. A man and a child, more than 11,000 years ago. They weren't just dumped in the ground, they were buried with care, surrounded by carefully crafted offerings of shell and stone, gifts for a journey we can only imagine. And here's what makes it stop you in your tracks. This is the only known double burial from the Paleo-American period in all of North America. One of a kind, on an entire continent, across all of deep time. The dating here is both astonishing and heartbreakingly fragile. That grave lay hidden beneath 11,000 years of slowly building soil and debris, sealed away and forgotten, surviving by pure luck until amateur diggers stumbled onto it in 1970. Now think about what it takes to date something this old. Radiocarbon dating needs organic material that has survived, uncontaminated for over 100 centuries. A razor-thin window where too much decay or a little contamination throws everything off. And with a find this rare, every single measurement carries crushing weight. Why? Because there is nothing else like it to compare against. Normally, scientists cross-check one site's dates against similar sites nearby. But when your discovery is the only one of its kind on the continent, there's no safety net. Every number stands alone. Imagine holding the single most important page of a story and knowing there's no second copy anywhere on Earth to check it against. Your takeaway: if you ever find something that looks old and important, stop, don't dig, and call the professionals. The Horn Shelter burial gave us priceless, irreplaceable knowledge about the first Americans, but we'll never fully know how much more we could have understood if it had been excavated with modern methods and careful hands from the very first moment it was touched. Rising out of the Texas hill country like the back of some sleeping giant is a colossal dome of pink granite, smooth, bald, and impossibly ancient. This is Enchanted Rock, and it has been pulling people toward it for a very, very long time. The Comanche and the Tonkawa both revered it and feared it, trading stories of eerie lights flickering across its surface and strange groaning sounds echoing from the stone at night. To them, the rock was alive, enchanted, watching. And honestly, you can see why the legends took hold. Here's the science that grounds the mystery. Archaeologists have found evidence of human use on and around this dome, stretching across the Paleo, Archaic, and Pre-Archaic periods, thousands upon thousands of years of visitors leaving faint traces. And that's exactly what makes the dating so maddening. There's no single structure here to test, no building, no tomb, no wall. Instead, there's an open-air landscape used continuously and lightly for millennia. People came, camped, left almost nothing, and moved on. Wind scoured the surface. Rain washed the slopes. Each generation's faint footprint got blurred into the last, until the whole timeline smeared together into one long, unbroken haze of human presence. The place is undeniably ancient, but pinning it to a single moment is like trying to date the ocean. And those enchanted noises the tribes described? They're real. The rock creaks and pops as it cools down after baking in the hot Texas sun. Expansion and contraction, pure physics, echoing across the stone at dusk. Your takeaway: if you get the chance, climb it at sunset and just listen. Those famous groaning sounds still happen today, and knowing the science behind them doesn't kill the magic. It deepens it. You're hearing the exact same voice of the rock that made ancient people believe this granite giant was alive and whispering secrets into the dark. Number 4. Lubbock Lake Landmark. Out on the flat, endless southern high plains, where the sky swallows the horizon, sits a place that reads like a layer cake of deep time. Lubbock Lake Landmark preserves nearly 12,000 years of unbroken human occupation. One culture stacked on top of another, all sealed in the sediment of an ancient watercourse that dried up long ago. Fulsome hunters chasing Ice Age giants, extinct animals that vanished from the earth thousands of years back. Stone tools from culture after culture after culture, each one leaving its mark before giving way to the next. It's not one moment in history. It's all of them, pressed together. So why does dating even come into play here? In one sense, it doesn't. Lubbock Lake is practically a textbook site precisely because its layers are so beautifully clean and clearly separated. But that's exactly what makes it a masterclass in just how demanding accurate dating really is. Every single band of sediment has to be dated on its own, then cross-checked, then matched carefully to the tools and bones found buried inside it. Get one layer's date wrong, just one, and the whole stacked sequence starts to wobble, throwing off everything above and below it. This is dating on hard mode, done exactly right by people who obsess over getting every layer to agree. Picture flipping through 12,000 years like the pages of a book, except you have to prove page by page that not a single one is out of order. Your takeaway: here's the best part. You can actually walk the trails at Lubbock Lake and see active dig sites with your own eyes. Real archaeology happening in real time. If you genuinely want to understand how experts build an ancient timeline from nothing but dirt and patience, there is no better classroom anywhere in Texas. Go see it and watch deep time reveal itself one careful layer at a time. Number 3. The Paluxy River Tracks. Now we wade straight into one of the loudest controversies Texas ever produced. In the rocky bed of the Paluxy River near Glen Rose, there are footprints pressed permanently into stone, and they are absolutely real. Genuine, jaw-dropping dinosaur tracks left by enormous creatures that once thundered across ancient mud. That part isn't in question at all, but for decades a far more explosive claim spread like wildfire, that right alongside those dinosaur prints were human footprints. And if that were true, it would mean people and dinosaurs walked the earth at the very same time, a claim that would shatter everything science thinks it knows. So let's separate the fireworks from the facts. The dinosaur tracks are real, and they're roughly 113 million years old, pressed into stone in a world with no humans anywhere near it. But those supposed human prints? When geologists and paleontologists studied them closely, carefully, print by print, the mystery collapsed. What people had excitedly called human footprints turned out to be eroded dinosaur tracks, natural erosion features in the rock, or in some cases outright carvings. Not human, not even close. This is the mystery that resolved, and it earns its spot on this list precisely because it shows how a thrilling dating claim can catch fire, spread for years, convince thousands of people, and still turn out to be completely wrong once real experts finally examine the evidence up close. Imagine an entire legend built on a shape in the rock, a shape that was never what it seemed. Your takeaway: whenever a claim sounds too explosive, too perfect, too exciting to be true, ask yourself the one question that cuts through the noise. What do the people who actually study this for a living say? In the Paluxy case, the specialist answered loud and clear. And the real answer, disappointing as it was to some, was simply the truth. Number 2, the Gault Site. Now for the one that quietly cracked open the textbooks. In an unremarkable field in central Texas sits the Gault Site. And what came out of the ground here was something that, by the old rules, simply shouldn't exist. For generations, science held a firm belief. The first Americans were the Clovis people, who arrived roughly 13,000 years ago. That was the ceiling. That was the story everyone learned. Then Gault started giving up its secrets. Stone tools, and even a possible man-made floor surface dated to around 15,000 years old. And in the same deposits, hints reaching back potentially as far as 20,000 years. Thousands of years before the first Americans were ever supposed to have set foot here. That's the earthquake. These older than Clovis dates don't just tweak the timeline, they challenge one of the most stubborn, deeply held assumptions in all of American archaeology. And because the stakes are so enormous, every single number gets scrutinized, retested, and fiercely debated. Skeptics ask the hard, fair questions. Could the soil layers have gotten mixed over the millennia? Could younger material have slipped down into older ground? Supporters fire back, pointing to the careful, painstaking stratigraphy and the sheer volume of evidence. This isn't some fringe fantasy cooked up on the internet. It's a serious, ongoing scientific argument unfolding right now in a Texas field, and depending on who wins it, the story of humans in the Americas could be pushed back by thousands of years. Picture it, a quiet patch of Texas dirt holding evidence that might rewrite the very first chapter of an entire continent's human history. Your takeaway. Remember this. Science isn't a dusty book of settled facts. It's a living, breathing argument that updates when the evidence demands it. Watching the Gault debate play out is like watching human history get rewritten in real time, right in front of us. Number 1, the Rockwall of Rockwall. And here it is, the number 1 puzzle, the one that has been baffling people for over 170 years. Rewind to 1852. Well diggers in North Texas are boring down into the earth when they hit something that makes no sense, a massive underground wall. Rows of stacked, brick-like stones fitted together with unsettling precision, running for miles and reportedly plunging dozens of feet deep. It looks so undeniably man-made that the town itself grew up around the mystery and took its name straight from it. Rockwall. In 1925, one investigator examined a piece of it and flatly declared it artificial, the work of human hands. To this day, a few voices still insist it's an engineered structure of staggering, impossible age. Now here's what the science says. As far back as 1901, geologist Robert T. Hill studied the formation and reached a very different conclusion. The wall is a natural sandstone dike, a geological feature where mineral-rich fluid seeped into a crack in the earth long ago, then hardened into stone that just happens to look eerily like stacked masonry. And this is the ultimate dating paradox. The reason it sits at number 1. If it's natural, then there's no civilization to date at all. You'd be dating raw geology, not human history. But if it's artificial, as a stubborn few still argue, then nobody has ever produced solid proof of who built it, or when, or why. So it hangs in permanent limbo, too neat and orderly for people to ignore, too natural for most scientists to accept, and utterly impossible to pin to any moment in time. An entire town is named after a mystery nobody can date. Your takeaway. The human brain is a pattern-finding machine. We see walls, faces, and hidden design everywhere, even where nature built it by pure accident. Rockwall is a gorgeous reminder to always hold that instinct up to the light before you trust it. So there you have it, 10 ancient Texas sites where time itself refuses to give a straight answer. Some have been solved, some are still fiercely argued over by serious scientists, and at least one is hiding in plain sight beneath a town's very own name. From desert paint that won't reveal its age, to a grave sealed for 11,000 years, to a field that might rewrite the entire story of the first Americans, Texas turns out to be far older and far stranger than most people ever imagine. And maybe that's the real lesson buried in all of this. The ground beneath our feet is keeping secrets. And every careful dig, every tested layer, every honest, we don't know yet, brings us one step closer to the truth. The mystery isn't a dead end, it's an invitation. One honest note before you go. Everything here is built on real archaeology, but the field is always evolving, and a few of these sites attract fringe theories that stretch far beyond the evidence. This video is made for curiosity and wonder. For the real deep dives, follow the researchers and institutions actually doing the fieldwork. Because the best mysteries in the world aren't the ones we solve and forget, they're the ones we never stop questioning. A couple of quick flags for you. I noticed two small typos to fix before recording. Hunters is spelled hunters. In the Alibates section, I accidentally wrote hunters as hunters. It's correct, but double check the line worked by hunters 12,000 years apart. Also want me to add on-screen text cues, B-roll suggestions, or trim the whole thing to a target runtime? Just say the word.